and she started tweeting with the hashtag Black BuzzFeed. They were really positive, upbeat posts. She really branded herself well. And when you create a great social brand for yourself, you can actually end up landing a job because of that brand. She didn't apply to anything. She just, she wasn't told by anybody to do this. She just kind of did it on her own. And they really liked the way that she handled her social media presence. And so she ended up getting hired. So it can result in great things if you understand how to use social media properly. If you don't use social media properly, though, it can result in rejection. You can, lose your job. You can be kicked out of school. And there is some things that you do on social media that are actually criminal, and you can end up in jail. What a lot of people don't understand is they feel like if I remove a post, if I remove a tweet, then I'm not going to get in trouble for what I just said that I, in hindsight, probably shouldn't have said. But the problem with social media is that it's forever, because even if you remove that post or that tweet, somebody can take a screenshot of it. They can send it to your boss. They can send it to your school, and you can end up out of a job or out of school. So these are some examples of some things that some folks have done. So the first example is students. There was a local high school student. He didn't even post anything on social media. He was writing up on a whiteboard at school. Somebody took a screenshot and said, "This is what it's like going to Marcus." This student ended up getting kicked out of school. There was another Georgia State University student who posted on a site called Finsta. I didn't even know what Finsta was, but it turned out that, my 3 college-age students, they all knew exactly what it was. And so this is a site that kids are using for social media. There was a young lady who got offered a job at Cisco, and she posted on Facebook, "Cisco just offered me a job. Now I have to weigh the utility of a fatty paycheck against the daily commute to San Jose and hating the work." Somebody from Cisco saw that and asked, "Who's the hiring manager? I'm sure they would love to know that you will hate the work. We here at Cisco are versed in the web." Another person tweeted, "I start my new job today, but I absolutely hate working at a daycare." And she ended up getting fired online. So you think that it's just young kids that make these type of mistakes, because you just assume that they're uneducated, they don't really know. But this example, these 2 people should have known. And there's many more examples of people who should know better. The CBS executive, he tweeted about the Las Vegas shooting and ended up losing his job. One of the most famous incidents of saying something on social media and losing your job, there was a PR person who went on a trip to Africa. And she got on the plane and she tweeted, "Going to Africa, hope I don't get AIDS. Just kidding, I'm white." By the time she landed, she was fired. It all happened, it went viral. There were millions of views before the plane ever landed, and she was immediately let go. I haven't seen if anybody else has hired her in PR since then. I would highly doubt it, because again, these folks, they're trained into how to handle the press, how to handle social media, and they made these huge, huge blunders and ended up losing their job. The other thing I always like to talk about is, given recent events, this was when I created this presentation, it was right after all the school shootings. And I actually saw something go on. There was a rumored school shooting at my school, my kids' high school. And the principal sent out a note saying that there was no validity to the rumor. And then I watched not the kids, but I watched the parents take everything the principal said totally out of context. And they kept saying, "Don't send your kids to school. Somebody's going to bomb it." And it just went on and on and on and on. And it's like they hadn't even read, even though they kept saying, "The principal said, the principal said, the principal said." So if you do ever see anything on social media, take a screenshot of it, report it to the social channel immediately so that they can get it off, and then report it to the local FBI, the local police, that type of thing, so that we can get people on it right away. And this is going to be things, if somebody threatens to bomb somebody, if somebody threatens to shoot somebody, they're going to go and cause disruptions at rallies and things like that. Also, if somebody is potentially suicidal, so you just need to make sure that you immediately take a screenshot, because it can be removed after that. All right, so what social sites do employers use? Most people don't realize that recruiters will go anywhere that applicants happen to gather. So I can promise you that we are on every social site there is. Even though I didn't know Finsta, I guarantee a lot of our university recruiters knew about Finsta, and they're probably on Finsta as well. So we're on Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Pinterest, Instagram, Snapchat. There's a new site called TikTok that recruiters are on as well. So let's talk about Snapchat. So Snapchat is a tool. It's a social media platform that probably your kids, your grandkids, your nieces and nephews, your neighbors, you know, the younger generation, they tend to use Snapchat a lot. The reason why they like Snapchat is because you can post a picture and then it's supposed to go away. Now, they have changed it a bit where you can still post a picture and it goes away, but you can also post the stories, you can save things. You know, now when it first came out, you couldn't, everything immediately went away. And so they liked it because they thought that they were much smarter than their parents. And that's why they joined this site. One of our recruiters at Intuit, he's really, really versed on social media. He understands where the kids are going. What's interesting is he's actually our oldest university recruiter. He's either in his 40s or 50s. I've never asked him his age, but he's definitely not, you know, a 20-something. He actually grabbed the handle, intern guy. And so what he'll do is he'll send a message to students saying, hey, I'm going to be in the cafeteria, meet me for coffee. Or, hey, I'm going to be in the library reviewing resumes, come on over and meet me. And so he's been able to greatly increase his hires off of, I think he's recruiting out at Stanford, if I'm not mistaken. Other companies have also joined in Snapchat. So McDonald's actually lets you fill out a Snapplication. It's an application that starts on Snapchat. There's another site called Instagram. Instagram is, again, another picture taking site. Facebook did purchase this site. There's a recruiter who literally just wrote a little ad on a piece of paper, just doodling at her desk. And this was the first Instagram job ad that I have found. She put it out there and she was able to get applicants that way. Other people picked up what she was doing and they're putting different job ads out there as well. And it's working. Different people are getting hired off of responding to Instagram ads. And again, I'm not saying that in your job search, like you have to get on Snapchat, you have to get on Instagram. There are times though, depending on what job you have, where you have to understand how all of these applications work. So it's good to see and know how some of these have evolved. A lot of these applications are also used for customer support as well. So if you're doing all the traditional stuff that's taught and it's not working, these are just some other sites that you may want to consider. Twitter is another place where employers engage. Employers will often post jobs out on Twitter. Usually they're going to use the hashtag job. A hashtag is simply, it's a way so that you can follow a certain word. Twitter was the first one to use hashtag, then Facebook picked it up and LinkedIn has now picked up the hashtag as well. It just makes that particular word searchable. So if you're looking for a job on any of the sites, you can go in and, you know, put in the little pound sign, the word job, and then maybe a keyword like cybersecurity, project manager, that type of thing, and then jobs should pop up on any of these sites. There's even applicants that use Twitter. This first picture that you see, this is Coco Sexton. He actually created a social media campaign on all of the different sites, you know, and it was titled Help Me Find a Job. I thought it was a really brilliant campaign. So brilliant, in fact, that I decided to go ahead and direct message him. What he did wrong, though, is he never answered any of the direct messages. You know, I tried on a number of different platforms to reach him to say, hey, we hire people like you. You know, would love to talk to you about your background and see if there's an opportunity for you. And I never heard from him. Now, it's possible that he found a job. It's very possible that he was already placed and so he didn't need to find a job anymore. But if you're going to be really bold and you're going to go out here on social media and you're going to talk about, you know, the fact that you want a job, what you have to understand is, yes, you may have landed that one job, but you're always thinking about jobs in the future. You know, imagine those 40 million people who were impacted by COVID. Those people who have made connections, all through their career, they continually network whether they need it or not. They have the advantage in the fact that they already have connections. So Coca could have responded back to me and said, "Hey, I've already landed, but thanks so much for following, my campaign. Would love to stay in contact with you. Here's my contact information. What's your contact information?" And we could have started to form a relationship, because this was probably 2 or 3 years ago that he did this. So let's say he was impacted by COVID. If he was impacted by COVID, he would have already had my contact information. He could have easily reached out and said, "Hey, you remember me from a couple of years ago, blah, blah, blah." And we could have started talking about the open positions we have. Okay, so this one is a really cool and very unique type of way to recruit. So this is called geofencing. So essentially what geofencing is it's usually a marketing tool. So usually a marketer will set up an ad so that when you walk into a particular store, you might be served up a coupon on one of these social sites. When you walk into, maybe a game, like a basketball game or something like that, you may be sent certain types of ads, certain type of geofilters, things like that that you can use on these various social channels. So this particular one is a technology company out in the Bay Area. They are trying to attract people from Twitter, Uber, and Pinterest. So when anybody walked into the Twitter building, they essentially got this ad that said, fly higher, leave Twitter and fly higher. The next one, when you walked into Uber, they would get this ad that said, "Is this place driving you mad?" And then the third one, when you walked into Pinterest, the ad said, "Are you feeling pinned down?" All right, so really unique, very fun. Even if these software engineers that were served up these ads, even if they weren't looking right then, let's say 2 months, 3 months later, their boss made them mad. Maybe that sexual harassment stuff at Uber finally kind of hit the boiling point. They're going to remember the person who sent them this ad because it's very creative, and so it's going to stick in their mind, and they'll reach out later. There's a site called Pinterest. You may or may not have heard of it, but Pinterest is essentially, it's an online scrapbooking site. So a lot of girls, for instance, they'll create a board for all of their wedding ideas, and a lot of them start at very, very young, and then just save different ideas over time. My daughter did this for her wedding, then she did it, for her nursery, things like that. It's not just for girls, though. There's a lot of people that are out there. There's a lot of brands that are out there. They're selling goods off of Pinterest, things like that. This guy, Dan, he actually is a Java developer. And so he had information out there about Java. So I hid some of his information, and I just said, "Insert your bio and talk about the skills that you have." Again, this is not one that you're going to go to every day. It's not one that you're going to think is going to help you land a job. But if you are in any type of creative field, it's a great place to be. And again, just get creative. If nothing else is working, if you can't get seen above, all of the noise from everybody that's looking, this might be an interesting way just to brand yourself. This one is really wild and really out there. Not many companies do this, but I have it in here because I want you to understand that when I say recruiters are everywhere, we literally are everywhere. We're in every meetup usually. We're in every, webinar that's being taught, things like that. We're everywhere to try to find people because not everybody responds on LinkedIn. Not everybody applies to jobs. So this particular one, Cincinnati was trying to recruit a graphic designer in their area. It wasn't working. And so they decided to go broader and get really creative. They actually went out to Tinder and created this ad and ended up inviting somebody to Cincinnati for a Tinder date. It was an all-day session where they showed them Cincinnati. They showed them like the really interesting things to do in Cincinnati, the housing market. They showed them a tour on campus. They interviewed them and hired somebody off of this. So again, we're crazy and we will be anywhere. Now, the social media giants, as I mentioned earlier, they're still in the game. I am really liking Facebook right now for a lot of different reasons that I'll discuss. There's billions of people on Facebook compared to the millions of people on LinkedIn. So this is one reason why recruiters are out here looking. Facebook will allow companies to create pages so they can promote what's going on in their company. people can create groups. So you can either have a group that's created by a company and it's kind of managed and monitored by the company, or you could have a group that essentially just everybody gets together and they decide they want to talk about knitting or cybersecurity or cats, whatever it is they want to talk about, they can form a group. You don't have to be a brand, you don't have to be a company to have a group. And then, of course, Facebook added the hashtag similar to Twitter, so you can actually follow hashtags. So in this example, I have the hashtag job again. Facebook groups can really help your career. So in the past 3 or 4 years, I have absolutely fallen in love with Facebook groups. The reason why I like Facebook groups is because they automatically just show up in my feed. So I belong to 2 different types of groups. I belong to groups for the type of people that I'm recruiting. So my favorite group, for instance, is Women in Product. It was started 3.5 years ago. Facebook used to invite women product managers to dinners with executives. It wasn't a recruiting tool, it was just kind of conversation, but there's always an underlying recruiting tool. From those dinners, they ended up starting to have meetups. Essentially, they would have different companies host them, they would live stream. In 3.5 years, they have gone from just, a couple of members to over 20,000 members. And part of that growth is due to the live streaming, which I thought was great. The other part of the growth is due to their Facebook page. Their Facebook page is really interactive. They'll ask questions about, hey, I've got an interview. Can somebody help me practice? Can somebody, review my resume? They'll ask specific questions about their job. Hey, I'm trying to work with engineers, give me some advice, that type of thing. They'll also do little small meetups, hey, are there any product managers in, the Los Angeles area? Would love to get together, Friday night for, happy hour, that type of thing. So it's just amazing. The other type of group I belong to are groups that will help me learn. They'll help me do a better job in the job that I do. So I belong to a bunch of recruiting groups. And every day I learn. Every day I'm learning about the latest and greatest tool that's out. What are we doing with AI and ML to find applicants, to attract applicants, things like that. So I always look like at my company that I'm leading edge. I'm not really leading edge. I am an early adopter. I'm not technical enough to do some of the technical things, the recruiters who truly kind of create the latest and greatest, but I'm definitely an early adopter. I know who to follow, and because of that, it really helps me with my reputation at work, my reputation, among my peers, my reputation with my boss, things like that. So find these groups that are related to whatever it is your skill set is. It's probably out there, and you just search in the search bar and you just say, cybersecurity groups, marketing groups, that type of thing, and you should find a group that's relevant. If for some reason you don't find a group that's relevant, you can start a group. Nobody says that you can't start a group. You can start any group you want and then start inviting people that you've worked with in the past to join your group, and it'll start blossoming from there. Now, whenever you use Facebook, though, you have to make sure that you have the About Me section set up properly. So on LinkedIn, you go through all of these privacy settings on LinkedIn, and you want to make sure, and we'll go through some of this, you want to make sure that your work information is public, that your school information is public, things like that. It's the same thing on Facebook. It takes anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to go through all of the Facebook privacy settings, so please click on every single one. But what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure that you list your work. Even if you're not there anymore, you still list, I worked at EDS, I worked at Intuit, I'm a recruiter. So list your titles, list the places that you've worked. You want to put a professional email address out there. I always recommend that you have a job search email address. I kind of keep my family email address private, my own personal email address private, but if I'm doing a job search, I would create a professional email address. Usually I forward that to my family one, but then that way the one that's public, the one that's out there publicly facing, is one that I don't mind, if people find, but I want to keep my family one private. If you have any work-related websites, maybe you have a portfolio of your work, maybe you've done presentations and so you're on YouTube or SlideShare, that type of thing, you can actually include links to that type of stuff. The things that you put for friends only, the way that you see public is you're going to see a little globe. All right. And so you make sure that you press the little globe for public. For friends only, it's going to have a little icon of two people. You want to make sure all of your pictures are for friends only. Your videos are for friends only. Whenever you do personal post, make sure that those are friends only. If you're posting about maybe a conference that you're attending or something that your company's done, that type of thing, you can make those public with the globe. But you want to make sure that everything else is friends only. You also want to make sure the month and the day of your birth are friends only. You want to make sure the year of your birth is only for you. So there's a little thing that looks like a little master lock. You want to make sure that that is set for only you. I also keep my cell phone just for me. I put the email out there. If somebody wants to talk to me, they'll email me. They'll let me know they want to talk to me. But I personally don't share my cell phone because it's a personal cell phone. It's not paid for by my company, so I don't want the whole world to necessarily know it. So again, make sure that you set all of this. Now, the thing about Facebook settings is if I do a post and I say that I want it to be public, in my actual settings, I can set and I can say I want my default post for all of my posts to be friends only. But for whatever reason, as soon as I do a public post, it changes that default setting. And so every post I do after that is public. So you have to look whenever you do one of those public posts, you have to make sure the next time you do a post, maybe about a family barbecue or something like that that you went to, just change the icon back to friends only. It's an issue with Facebook. They haven't fixed it. It's been years, so it's still happening every time I post. So again, I just want to make sure that you know to be really careful. All right, so the difference between a Facebook page and a Facebook group. A Facebook page is started by a brand. So it's a public profile that allows those companies and those brands to introduce their services and activities. I have seen individuals create Facebook pages so that they can try to segregate their personal Facebook with their Facebook page. I still think that no matter what, even if you do that, and I'm not necessarily recommending you do that, but the problem is if you do that, then you get really secure on your personal Facebook page. You haven't changed your settings. You're saying something that's inappropriate, thinking that the employer won't be able to find you. Don't assume people can't find you, right? People can always find you. So I just want you to be really careful if you do decide to create your own page. Again, it's not what I recommend. What I recommend is that you just make sure your settings are done properly. A group is a community-based feature that gathers people with the same interest to discuss topics and share their opinions. And again, it can be cats, it can be knitting, it could be cybersecurity, data science, marketing, accounting. A group can be created for any reason. All right. Any questions about any of those other social sites before I move on to LinkedIn? Okay, I'm going to assume silence is no. If you guys have questions, feel free. I should have told you this earlier. Feel free to just, ping in and say, hey, I have a question. You can throw something in chat, and we'll see it and make sure we get that answered. Okay, so LinkedIn is still the most important tool that you're going to use to try to find a job. All right, 90% of the recruiters are on LinkedIn. Now, when I teach you LinkedIn, I still want your resume out on Indeed. I still want your resume in the Monster, Career Builder. If you're technical, I want your resume in Dice, things like that. So I'm not saying use LinkedIn to the exclusion of everything else. But LinkedIn is really critical because I can have LinkedIn and I can try to recruit you on LinkedIn, even if I don't have the fancy LinkedIn recruiter tool. There is a tool called LinkedIn Recruiter that we pay for. It usually takes up the majority of a recruiter's recruiting budget. And, so they're in that tool all the time. But if I don't have the money to have LinkedIn Recruiter, I can still find you on LinkedIn in various ways. So you need to make sure you're out here. But again, not at the exclusion of being on some of these job boards. Some of the smaller companies, they may not have LinkedIn at all. They may not know how to use LinkedIn, but they still know how to use Monster and Career Builder and things like that. My husband even told me years ago, I said, put your resume on Monster. And he said, in my industry, we don't use Monster. He goes, it's a very tight-knit industry. We all know each other. We'll all call each other. He ended up going over to Iraq to work because he wasn't able to find something here in the U.S. He was there for a couple of years. He actually was recruited while he was in Iraq for a VP role. There was an owner of a company that bought access into Monster for like 2 or 3 days, downloaded all of the resumes with my husband's skill set, and then started making calls. And so, and the only reason he put his resume on Monster is because I made him. I put my foot down, like, I am a recruiter. I do know what I'm talking about, at least stick it out there. So he ended up getting an offer, and he came back home, which was great because we had 3 really young kids at the time. So again, make sure that this is not done to the exclusion of those job boards. Okay. So the first thing that you need to think about when you are looking at LinkedIn is you need to make sure that you have a photo. So your photo is going to be this small circle. The photo needs to be high resolution. That doesn't mean that you have to go get a professional LinkedIn profile photo taken. Now, there's a lot of the job search groups out here that do bring in a photographer to help you take that headshot. So if you can get that, that's great. But a lot of our cameras are capable, a lot of our cell phone cameras are capable of taking high resolution photos. On LinkedIn, as of right now, we're still recommending that you have a professional headshot. And again, professional just means it's just your head. On Twitter, on Facebook, you could just have your ear. You could have one eye. You could have a rose. You could have a picture of a bike. You could have anything. It's a lot more casual on the other sites. It is starting to get more casual on LinkedIn. You're going to see a lot of photos that are more casual, but because I don't know what your industry is, because I don't know who is going to be calling you, we just recommend this professional headshot because what if a bank wants to hire you? What if, the government wants to hire you, something like that? They may not be attracted to, your one earlobe photo. A graphic company might be. They might think it's really unusual. So again, kind of that high resolution headshot. Now, this picture in the background, you don't have to have it, but if you do have it, it can be fun. There's a guy who does mountain biking, and he just has a picture, of, doing a bike ride, in the background. It can be something related to your industry if you want it to be something related to your industry. But again, that background photo does not have to be necessarily, quote, professional. As long as it's not something that's going to turn off an employer. Like one of, our HR leaders, she just has blue bonnets in the background, things like that. Okay, the next thing you want to do is you want to look at your headline. So the words right underneath your name, this is called your headline. So you want to make sure that you define what you do. I don't care that you're unemployed. I don't want you to put out there, take away the headline that you always had before and just put in, open for opportunities. There are some job search sites that teach that, some workshops that say put that out there. That is not what we're recommending. We're recommending that you still have your headline, because think about when I search on Google for an Italian restaurant. When I search on Google for an Italian restaurant, I don't click on every result that comes back. I quickly scan. And I go, oh, that one looks interesting. And then I click on it. It's the same thing when we're doing searches. We quickly scan. If I see a headline that tells me, okay, I'm looking for a recruiter, and I need an executive recruiter. If you're going to see my headline, you're going to stop and you're going to click on my headline because you found the right person. All right. So it's the same thing for you. Are you a brand marketing manager? Are you a front end Java engineer? Are you an executive assistant? Keep that headline. If you're not currently working, you just take off the name of the company. Now, I have seen people say, for instance, that they are a product manager, and then in parentheses, they'll put, X Netflix, X Amazon, something like that, because they know that that brand from the employer holds weight, and so they're putting it in the headline, and that does work. When I see X Amazon, Netflix, LinkedIn, Google, Facebook type product managers, I always click, because those are the companies that we do a lot of recruiting out of. All right, now the other thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that when you're thinking about your headline, that you really think about kind of the order that you're saying something. So this headline, this young lady said that she was an Air Force veteran seeking a cybersecurity position. So when I ran across her headline, In my mind, I immediately thought that she did not have experience, because the thing that she talked about first was being an Air Force veteran. She didn't talk about being a cybersecurity expert first. She talked about being a veteran first. And there's a lot of people who come out of the military or who come out of school, and they'll emphasize that rather than emphasizing where their expertise is. So at first glance, I thought that she was entry level. I ended up clicking on her profile anyway, and she's actually has 11 years as a cybersecurity specialist. So she should have said cybersecurity expert with TS slash SCI clearance, Air Force veteran, right? Then there would have been no doubt in my mind, if I needed somebody with a lot of experience, I would have immediately clicked on her. All right, does that make sense to everybody? Okay. All right, in LinkedIn, you want to make sure that you have your contact information. When you're in the settings in LinkedIn, make sure you always have 2 emails, because you need a secondary email in case you get locked out of your account. You can also include your Twitter handle as well. Again, if you have any of those work-related websites, maybe it's a presentation you've done, maybe you have a blog, maybe you have a YouTube video, that type of thing, make sure that that's out there as well. This is really interesting. So for a couple of years, LinkedIn has allowed you to be able to tell recruiters that you are open for a new position. When you tell a recruiter that you're open for a new position, we see this in that fancy tool, LinkedIn Recruiter. Your current employer cannot see it. So if you're doing a confidential search, your current employer cannot see it. That open status only lasts 90 days, and then you can add additional details. You can say, I'm open for these type of job titles, I'm open for this type of location, things like that. Something that's really interesting, I don't know when LinkedIn made the change, but I feel like it was around when COVID happened. You can now tell all of LinkedIn that you are open for a job. So when you do that, the status is going to be flagged, on your profile. So again, don't change that headline saying that you're open for opportunities. If you're doing a full-blown job search, you're not currently employed, go ahead and let all of LinkedIn know that you're looking. The reason why you do that is LinkedIn Recruiter, again, not every recruiter has LinkedIn Recruiter. By saying that you're open to all, your ex-coworkers are going to see that you're looking. If they had great experience with you, they might recommend you into their company. They might say, oh my gosh, my friend's looking. They get hit with a job lead and they say, hey, no, I'm not looking right now, but my friend is, and they share your information, things like that. And then again, those recruiters who don't have LinkedIn Recruiter are going to be able to see that you're looking. So that was a really cool change that LinkedIn just made. All right, in your summary section now shows about 2.5 lines. It used to show the entire thing, but now it shows 2.5 lines. So you want to make sure in your summary section that those first couple of lines actually tell what it is you do. So this is Courtney. She's working for our UK design team on QuickBooks. She's focusing on the global payroll product. All right, I know exactly what it is she's looking for, so I'm going to click and learn more, and then I'm going to go to her blog. She's got her own website where she has all of her design work. Okay, so again, if you've got any type of that portfolio, make sure you include it in the summary. Because she told me exactly what it was she did in that first, 2.5 lines, I'll click and I'll learn more. All right, down in the work area, you want to make sure that you're adding work experience, leadership examples. You want to make sure that you're using, strong past tense, action-oriented verbs. I try not to use like I and my a lot, whether I'm on LinkedIn or whether I never use it on the resume, but I try not to use it on LinkedIn either. But talk about what it is that you've done. I love this example. So this is a kid. He's graduating from college, and a lot of kids that graduate from college, they say that they tutored, but usually that's all they do is they say, I tutored physics. This kid said he tutored and mentored 3rd and 4th grade Cincinnati public school students who were at risk of failing important benchmark tests, producing 100% improvement in passage rates. So he took something like tutoring and he put a metric behind it. I thought that was brilliant. The other thing that he did is he's the president of the Rhetoric Society at Berkeley. I had to look up rhetoric. I didn't know what it meant. It basically means he's a writer. And so I love how he takes something that is a volunteer position. This is not a paid job, but he made this look like a paid job. He successfully increased student membership by 100% by implementing a full funnel marketing approach. So just read this page in the deck and really look at how he's wording things. He's taking things that you would never typically see on a student's resume, and he's making it look like a job. Super impressive. It's actually the best entry-level resume I've ever seen. Okay, the other thing that you can do on LinkedIn is you can add content. It looks like this page might be a little bit messed up. I'll have to fix that real quick. So what this page is actually talking about editing your URL. So here you've got linkedin.com / I've grabbed my name. If you haven't grabbed your name yet, make sure that you do that. You're trying to get rid of all the numbers, because as you join LinkedIn, LinkedIn essentially gives you a number after your name. All right. All right, this is the area for privacy settings. Again, there's 3 different buckets. You have account, privacy, and communications. Make sure that you go through them all. And you'll have to go through each one of these. All right, so again, this takes about 30 minutes to an hour, just like Facebook. LinkedIn used to be super easy, but the more they become like Facebook, the harder this part's gotten. Okay, all right, so this is another area that's talking about editing your URL. Again, you want to make sure that you have that URL. You're going to use the URL on your resume. If you don't have it on your resume, you want to put it on your resume now. The reason why you put it on your resume is because if you apply for a position at my company, your resume then is in my database. My 2 top performers on my sourcing team actually got most of their hires from the database, not from LinkedIn, not from job boards, but from the database. What they would do is they would go out and they would look at old recs, old openings, and they would say, these people applied in the past. Let me take a look at their background now. It could be 2 or 3 years later. So in those 2 to 3 years, you probably have gained more experience. But the problem with the resume in our system is the resume is old, right? It's 2 to 3 years old. But what is usually up to date? Our LinkedIn profile is normally up to date. People keep their LinkedIn profile more up to date than they keep their resumes. They don't remember everywhere they've applied, so they don't go back and they don't update their resume in all these systems, especially if you're not looking. You may not be looking at all and you get a call from a recruiter, they found your resume in their database. If you have the LinkedIn URL on your resume, I can click on that URL and I can see all of the updated work that you've been doing, right? And so I know, okay, so maybe the job that I was searching for might have been a software engineer 2, and I'm searching a rec that's 3 years old. My thought is anybody who applied for a software engineer 2 3 years ago might now be a software engineer 1, whatever the levels are that go up. Maybe they're a senior software engineer. So I'm going to go to that old rec to try to find people that have applied. They've expressed interest in my company before, so I have a better shot of you at least responding to me because you've been interested in my company before. And you've also gained 3 years of experience. So now I'm assuming that you're going to be the right level. All right, the other thing that you need to do is you need to create your public profile so that it can be found. So there's an area where it says, this is your public profile's public visibility. All right, so this is essentially letting me be able to find you in Google, not in LinkedIn, but in Google. If I don't have that fancy tool, I'm going to go out to Google and I'm going to try to find you. So you click and you say, okay, I'm going to make my public profile visible. And a lot of people think that they're done. You're not done. You have to move all of these different sliders to make all of this visible. So over here on the left-hand side, my name is visible, my headline is visible, my about section is visible. I even have my email address right here so everybody can see me. All right, but I have every slider on. If I turn the sliders off, information on the left-hand side starts to disappear. All right, and your goal is, especially when you're job searching, is you want to be able to be found. All right, we talked about having 2 emails. This is just, giving you more details on the privacy setting. They're going to share this deck with you, so you'll have that. So after you've done the privacy settings, after you've added all your work information, after you've made sure that your public profile URL is customized and you've made sure that you're visible, you start going in and you start adding connections. And a lot of people don't know who to add. So add people that you went to college with. You can even add people that you went to high school with. Add your current work peers, your former work peers, add your family, add your neighbors. Go in and add recruiters from targeted companies, add recruiters that you've interviewed with, and add hiring managers that you've interviewed with. Most hiring managers, from what I've seen, they would rather connect with you after the interview than before the interview. But we do try to make sure that the hiring managers' profiles are visible so that you can see them. So after you do an interview with somebody, say, "May I send you a LinkedIn invite?" and then follow through and send it. All right, so this is a tip from one of our recruiters in Israel. He said that if you see somebody with this gold N after their name, it means that they're an open connector. So let's say you're going in and you're searching cybersecurity recruiter Google. All right, and you come up with some Google recruiters that recruit cybersecurity on LinkedIn, and you see this gold, go ahead and send them an invite. I would send them an invite anyway, even without the gold, if they're in my particular area and I know that they recruit somebody like myself. All right, the other thing you want to do is you want to follow companies. LinkedIn tells us that if you're following our company, there's a 70% of the people who follow a company are actually interested in a career at that company. Those companies will post updates. They'll post, open positions. The other thing you can do is you can utilize status updates. So I have status updates that I call applicant tips. So I'll share different tips with applicants. You can share status updates that are relevant to whatever it is, the industry that you're coming from. So maybe you're a data science person. You can share data science articles. You can share articles on, job searching for data science, something like that. So anything that's kind of related around your field, you can share status updates. LinkedIn is not Facebook. This is not where you go and you share status updates about what your family did or, wishing somebody a happy birthday, things like that. I don't use status updates for that. I try to keep the LinkedIn status updates professional. You can comment and like others' updates, but you need to make sure that you stay really positive. There is somebody who follows a lot of my updates, and I've never met him, but he's pretty negative. It doesn't matter what I say. He's pretty negative. He's from Atlanta. I always respond back to him in a really positive, nice way. But what was interesting is there was another person who follows my updates, and she sent me something privately, and she said, I wanted to give you, this suggestion, but I didn't want to post it because I didn't want this person, from Atlanta who's always commenting to, take it out of context. She goes, gosh, I would never hire that person. So people look at the comments, they look at how you're responding. So over here, Jennifer's responding, I'm talking about an applicant tip, checking out Facebook groups. And Jennifer's responding back. Two of my favorites are, the content strategist and the micro copy and UX writing group. So that is super positive. Penny over here is excellent post, great tips. So you want to be positive because you never know who's responding. So if I'm putting out a data science post and a whole bunch of data scientists are, talking back and forth, oh yeah, I totally agree with that, or, hey, I would do XYZ to get this answer, whatever it is data scientists talk about. If I'm searching for a data scientist, not only am I looking at the person who posted the data scientist post, I'm also looking at the comments, because my thought is who's ever making those comments is probably in the same industry, the same field. Okay, you can also check out who's viewed your profile. I had an applicant do this yesterday. He saw that I had viewed his profile and he just reached out to check in. All right, so you want to make sure that people are viewing your profile. I think I showed up 3,989 profile views in the past 90 days. So make sure people are looking. If people aren't looking at your profile, you need more connections, you need better information in your LinkedIn, you need to start doing those status updates and things like that. All right, you can join groups on LinkedIn. Make sure when you do that you go ahead and introduce yourself. I found that I like Facebook groups better, but LinkedIn groups definitely still have value, and recruiters can post jobs for free in those groups. All right. Now, you can find recruiters on LinkedIn just by going in and typing in recruiter and whatever skill set you have, recruiter banking, recruiter cybersecurity, recruiter product management. You can even take it one step further and put in the company name you're targeting, recruiter engineering Google. I have 3 engineering recruiters at Google. And here I've got, cybersecurity recruiters. So this is a really easy way to narrow down your search. When you do connect with the recruiters, make sure that you've reviewed their website. Send them your resume, add a position number and the title. You can even add the location. You don't want to all of a sudden, reach out to Faye and say, hey, do you have a job for me? Without doing any work up front. You already have Faye's information. When you reach out to her, you want to make sure it counts. This is just a bunch of recruiters. I just did a search for cybersecurity and data science. Look at all these recruiters that I found. Not every recruiter will list their headlines this way, but a lot of recruiters do. All right, so I'm taking you into LinkedIn Recruiter. All right, so in LinkedIn Recruiter, I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a search. I'm going to say I want a chief architect. I want him from the San Francisco Bay Area, and I want him to come out of Facebook. It's going to tell me that there's 19 candidates that have had that title. 0 are engaged with my talent brand, so that means they're not following my company page. 8 of them have company connections, and I have 1 past applicant. So let's say I reach out to all 19 of these folks. If they don't reach that back out to me, I'm going to look at the folks that have company connections. All right, and then I'm going to go to my company connection. I'm going to say, hey, I'm trying to reach out to, Tanya. She's not answering. Can you just ping her and see if, perhaps she's interested? I can fill out a lot of this area, a lot of forms, or I could just do a Boolean search on LinkedIn. When I get results back, so in this search, I got 243 candidates back. 50 or more likely to respond. So when it says 50 or more likely to respond, this is an algorithm that's running in the background, and it's saying that, Rodney tends to respond to InMails. Tanya does not. So Rodney is going to show up in this 50 more likely to respond, but if Tanya doesn't ever respond to InMails, she's not going to show up in that area. If I only have a certain amount of time to search, I'm going to narrow it down. I'm not going to go through all 243. I'm probably going to look at the 50 that are more likely to respond. If I only have just a really short time to search, I might go down to the 21. The 21 are already showing me that they're open to new opportunities. So I have a better shot of you responding back to me. If I am really, really limited on time, I'm going to go to the 4 that are engaged with my brand. They've already shown me that they're interested in Intuit. They're following my company page. All right. So this is kind of how it breaks down whenever we do responses. So this is one of the reasons to respond to InMails, so that you show up in this bucket. The other reason why you respond to InMails is you never know when you're going to be looking for a job. So even if you're not looking for a job now, you want to make sure that you're responding anyway, so that you can get contact information for the future. If you do respond to an InMail from a recruiter, always include your email and your phone number. There may be something on the LinkedIn side that makes it look like your contact information is being shared with the recruiter. I can promise you it is not. I cannot see it. So go ahead and share your email and phone number. You can suggest times of days that work for you for the interviews. Recruiters are taught to keep InMails really short. So if you need to hear more about the job before you decide to interview, see if they can share a link to the job or a copy of the job. And again, make sure that you ask for contact information, whether you're interested or not, so you can stay in touch for the future and share your contact information. If you're not looking, for a particular role, or maybe the role that we reached out to you for is off, you still go ahead and answer, because again, you're trying to build those contacts. If you're not interested, but you happen to know somebody that is, maybe it's somebody you met at Senior Source, it might be your neighbor, it might be your son or daughter, there's people in your life who are looking. You can ask them to share their contact information with you, so that you can send it to your friend. You can ask for a link to the job. It's all about kind of forming those relationships. Recruiters really appreciate referrals, and they'll remember you when things get tough. All right, the other thing to make sure that folks understand is LinkedIn messaging is not a chat site. You do not send somebody a message and just say hi, hi, how are you? That type of thing. LinkedIn messaging needs to actually be the message. Make sure you read that summary section. My summary section is super clear. If you want a job at Intuit, I tell you exactly what to do. I tell you to email me, not message me. But every day I get 10, 20, 30 messages saying, hi, how are you? Can I send you a resume? Will you give me the name of the recruiter? You know, that type of thing. And again, my LinkedIn summary is really clear on how to get help, but a lot of people don't read it. I don't ever respond to these. All right, because I found that if I do start responding to them, a lot of them are they're just they're weird. They're like trying to pick you up. They're you know saying, "Oh, you're so pretty. Oh, you know, I really like you." And so all of a sudden you'll be talking to somebody who's trying to scam you out of money. You know, that type of thing. So I just don't answer it. It could be totally legit, but I don't answer it. So make sure you don't do that.